Welcome to the Not Superheroes Just Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be present for our kids, and combat generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I'm Sean Laurie. I hope you guys are having a blessed day today. Before we jump into it, guys, right, like always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. You guys know, like always, I appreciate the support. It really means a whole lot to me, guys. But with that being said, guys, so if you guys been, I guess, keeping track of those that follow me on social media and stuff like that, right? I was actually a guest on this guy's amazing podcast, the Release Valve. Sorry, I almost messed up the Release Valve podcast. I was on there with Sean and Kyle as well. But I love just what both of them was bringing, and I was like, man, I'm gonna get Kyle on there too at some point. But I was like, man, I have to get Sean on. So how are you doing today, my guy?
Nah, I appreciate it, bro. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, and thank you again for coming on our podcast. You definitely blessed us with some knowledge and insight, so I appreciate that.
No, definitely, man. And so when I reached out to him, guys, I asked him, just like, because I always want to make sure, when I have guests on, guys, that it's something that they're either comfortable with or something that, that they feel like, hey, this is where I'm at right now, this is space. And so, you said something, man, that was very dope to me, right, where you're just more so like figuring out, I mean, we all say this father thing that we're trying to figure out, but like this journey you're on, right? Almost like a self-discovery. And I thought that was amazing, bro. So, you mentioned that, fatherhood has been your greatest teacher, right? So I wanted to ask you, like, can you share one of the biggest, maybe the biggest lesson so far in your fatherhood journey? Like what it has taught you so far?
I mean, that's a good question. I think probably patience has been my biggest hurdle. Growing up, I was constantly just going from one moment to the next, and if anything was too difficult to deal with, I wasn't dealing with it. I just moved on from it, and didn't really grow for a long time because of that. So when I became a dad, learning to be patient and again, realize that it wasn't just about me anymore. This is not just my journey, but I'm now a part of somebody else's journey in life and their upbringing. So definitely being patient with others, being patient with myself, and figuring out how to go about that, how to navigate those waters. Because that was uncharted waters for me. Having to actually deal with situations at hand and try to make it better for others and myself. Patience has definitely been the biggest one for me.
Now, why do you, because like you said, growing up it was something you didn't necessarily do. Why do you think that is?
I think I didn't like feeling uncomfortable. I didn't like not knowing things. So if I didn't have firsthand knowledge of it, I was either one, acting like I did and then moving on from it, like I said, or if it made me feel uncomfortable, I wasn't good at being vulnerable. I wasn't good at opening myself up. I had a lot of feelings, but I didn't address any of them. So I think it was fear, probably fear-based and maturity, really more than anything, that I was avoiding because, it made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now, do you think, because, especially us growing up, right, a lot of times it was, you're not going to necessarily express certain things, or you're going to, you might be quote unquote weak if you're not knowledgeable about this, or why are you asking for help, right? So like, was that some of the dynamic too, as well as not even necessarily your parents or anything, but just maybe what you've seen as far as like, oh yeah, you know what, I don't like this, or I'm not going to be, patient with this because this is what I saw, or whatnot, basically.
Yeah, not to throw shade at him or throw him under the bus or anything, but my dad was an alcoholic for a long time. Happy and proud to say that he's been sober for like 10, 11 years now. But, growing up, and I wasn't even aware of it, as a kid. I didn't realize what that was or
Yeah.
anything like that. But, you pick up on those things, you see the patterns and stuff. And that was his way of avoiding things too, and not having to address them, and the stress or, whatever, he would just drink it away. And so I think just seeing the fact that he wasn't dealing with that, or my mom was avoiding him, now assessing it looking back because he was under the influence, she was avoiding having to address anything with him because of it. So I just saw a lot of avoidance, I guess, and just
Yeah.
picked up on, yeah, this is uncomfortable. This doesn't make me feel good. So internalize it, keep it
Yeah.
in, don't talk about it, and, eventually you'll be able to move on.
And that's crazy when you think about it, right? Because like you said, like you really had no idea. Your parents did a great job to try to make sure you didn't necessarily see certain things, whatever. But
Right,
even just little things here and there, internally, you were still like taking it in, right? And so that's
right.
like mind blowing. Where it's like, I think that's a good reminder for us as fathers, right? Like stuff that we think we're doing, and oh, okay, like our kids don't necessarily know this, or they like you never know. Like there might be a little thing here and there that they're picking up and you're not realizing. So that's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't really put all that together until just now when you asked me that question. You're right, man. What's and I've said this before, what's a passing moment for one is a lasting moment for another. And you don't realize how much these kids are just sponges. You know what I mean? They soak it all in. They may not understand it. And the problem with that is that they're gonna create their own solution to it, or they're going to create their own, they're going to fill in their own blanks, as opposed to, really being able to let them know what the situation is. And they shouldn't be able to carry all that weight. You know what I mean? They should just be able to be kids and stuff. But, yeah, that's our job as parents, to really make sure that we're we're giving them the right amount of exposure without overexposure and putting too much on their plate, right?
Yeah, no, I agree, man. So, like, you that actually might be the answer what you just said, but just looking back and where you're at right now in your journey as a husband, as a father, what's one thing you probably noticed that's changed the most about you since, yeah, as of today?
Yeah, being aware, because I remember, like I said, I filled in a lot of blanks for myself, and then when I got older, even before I had kids, like I said, I found out that my dad was an alcoholic,
Yeah,
so I started filling in those blanks, and so it made me hyper aware of how I wanted to be with my kids before I even had kids. I knew when I was young that I wanted to be a dad. That was
mm,
something that, you know, some kids were shooting to be teachers and astronauts or professional athletes. It was like, yeah, I may be something, but I know I'm going to be a dad if nothing else. So I was always thinking about the type of dad that I wanted to be.
mm,
And so I knew before I had kids that I wanted to make sure that, you know, all the good things that I had when I was a kid, I want to make sure I bring that to the table, but I want to make sure I don't bring any of those negatives either. And and again, nobody's perfect, so I
yeah,
have I have my negatives that I do bring to the table, but I try to address it. I try to have that type of communication with them. So I think communication and talking about the things that we have going on, and again, not over explaining things that, like, these kids are too young to understand, and they don't need to try to think about certain things, like financial aspects and stuff like that. They don't need to be worrying about that. But, let them know if I'm stressed out, why I'm stressed out. I had a tough day at work, or, whatever it is, instead of them just seeing how I'm acting about something and not knowing the reasons why, and trying to avoid them filling in, like I said, filling in their own blanks. And um, and just let them know, everybody has emotions, everybody has feelings, but, it's all a matter of how we handle it, and how we go about those feelings and those emotions. I'm gonna sound like I'm like the perfect dad right now,
oh,
but, you know what I mean.
yeah,
It's not even like that. But, being aware of the effect that I have on the kids,
yeah,
and because I know that the effect that my parents had on me.
Mm,
So allowing them to be kids without putting too much of what I have going on their plate, so that the way they're not carrying any extra weight, you know.
yeah, no, that's what I was gonna ask, and maybe I said I was gonna ask like because you are sounds like you're constantly like assessing and evaluating like your mindset, and so
Mm.
the things you're listing is that like some of the ways that you're like, I guess, is that how you're kind of reassessing it and reevaluating yourself? Are you doing this like on a daily or weekly base, or is it more so just hey, I'm just kind of going and then oh every now and then there might have been something that happened that triggered something. I'm like, hey, let me sit back and kind of reassess how I'm responding.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of all of that, really. You
Mm,
know, because again, I'm constantly, almost to a fault, maybe assessing how I feel about something or the reasons why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, and try to course correct as I go. You know, because again, I'm not perfect, but I try to make sure that I'm not having a negative effect on those around me. If I'm having a negative effect on them, then I'm putting them in a position to where they can't be their best selves,
mm,
because they're then carrying whatever it is that I brought to them, right? So, for an example, not too long ago, I was driving, and this lady for some reason tried to cut me off, and so I backed up. I let her get in front of me, but then she puts her arm out the window and flips me off. And in the past, I would have got mad, man.
yeah,
I would have been screaming. I used to have the worst road rage, and for some reason, I just was like, you know what? Not today. I'm not going to let you have that today. Go ahead. I laughed at it, like,
yeah.
whatever. You have something else going on that has nothing to do with me, so go ahead. And then it was like a 2-minute drive to my house from there, and I remember walking in and thinking like, man, if I would have allowed that to get the better of me and be angry, because I walked inside and my kids were like, hey, come look at this, Daddy, come look at this. I want to show you something. And they were playing, and then they wanted to show me what they built.
Hmm.
If I would have came in with that negative energy, I would have missed out on that, because they would have
Yeah.
picked up on that negative energy. They wouldn't have wanted to share what it is that they had going on, or I would have had not as good of a response to what they had going on. I would have brushed it off like, yeah, cool, whatever, and then moved on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just made me really, really think and feel like, man, I really do have to be careful with the aura that I'm carrying around me when I go about the things that I have going on.
Yeah.
It's so yeah, things come up that make me think about that type of stuff. Sometimes it's I'll see that I didn't have a good reaction, and I'll assess how things just went and their reaction to me, and like I said, I try to course correct whenever I can. Apologize if I need to. I'm sorry, I was thinking about something else that had nothing to do with this. Let me show me again what you were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's different, but it's probably a combination of all that, man. Trying to just trying to do better whenever I can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so you said something as well to me when we were talking through message.
Mm.
You said something as far as just being a student. And so I want to ask you, when you hear that, like being a student of life, what does that mean to you?
So I was a horrible student, actual student in school. I
Mm,
had a short attention span. I had struggles just paying attention in class. I was social. I wanted to kick it with the homies. I wasn't really trying to, apply myself. And I felt like I learned more through what was going on in life than I
mm,
did sitting in the classroom paying attention to what the teacher was talking about. I picked up more on people's behaviors, the patterns that I would see in certain things. Somebody does this, oh, it makes me feel this way, stuff like that. I was very observant of people. I've always been fascinated by human behavior,
mm,
and including my own. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So when I got out of school, I felt like I started learning more about life
Mm,
than all the years that I was in school. And so, yeah, the term student of life, I adopted not too long afterwards because I just loved the different experiences that I gained, and like I said, how it made me feel, the knowledge that I was able to obtain from it, and start applying and adopting new things going forward in my life. Um, so yeah, the student of life, I think it is an important mindset to have, especially as you get older. Some people they can kind of get stuck in their ways. This is how I do it. I've always gone about it this way. You know, staying in their own cycle of habits type of thing. So I'm always looking to switch things up, man. If it worked, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see if it works for me too. And like I said, I'm always looking to try to get better in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. So it's never you can never stop learning if you have that mindset. Whether I'm about to be in my 40s. I know people that are in their 60s that have that mindset that are still learning, but I know people that are in their 60s, 70s that they've been who they are their entire life and they're never going to change. So for me, it's exciting to look at everything as an experience that I can learn from. Look at everything as something, like I said, that I can obtain some sort of knowledge and
Mm.
apply it to myself going forward. Help others with knowledge. You know what I mean? I love being able to share things with different people about things that I read or listened to or saw, and try to, like I said, do better.
Yeah.
Find new ways that I can update myself, upgrade myself into, just a better human being, I guess.
No, I love it, man. Cause no, I agree too. I was the biggest at school as well, but life definitely um, taught me a lot of things, right? And so I want to ask
Mm.
you, what age or what moment, you know, um, you start, I should say, start excelling or doing well in this thing we call life, right? Because at the end of the day, life is always going to have, there it's going to hit us with an uppercut here and there, right? So we're going to get hit
Right,
with a few jabs, So, but when
right,
when was that moment where, like the mindset you have now, like you said, you're not perfect by any means. I'm sure you have stories. Hey, I screwed up here, I screwed up there, right? But what age or what moment in your life where it started to really click for you, like, hey, you know what, let me start really studying up to be the best student of this thing we call life.
right. Yeah, I would say I had two different time periods. The first one was when I hit 30.
Mm.
For some reason that hit me. It was like, all right, I need to grow up a little bit here. You know what I mean? I need to start figuring this out. I had a plan, a very loose plan on how I wanted my life to look, and it didn't look anything like that when I turned 30. So I was like, all right, I got to start figuring some stuff out. I need to start actually planning for my future. And so I met who is now my wife when I turned a little bit after 30, and things started to progress with her. And then the second time was after my daughter was born.
Mm.
I didn't have an immediate as soon as she was born, I had this like grand awakening type of thing, but it was kind of like the circle back. I would find myself in situations that I used to be in, and it was like, oh, I don't feel the same way anymore.
Mm.
I don't feel I don't like the way this makes me feel anymore. I felt that weight of responsibility after she was born, and like I said, it's not just about me anymore. This isn't
Yeah.
just my journey in life. I am now responsible for raising this other human being, and I don't know how to do that. So I got to figure this out, man. I gotta really, like I said, then I really started, was like, all right, I need to start planning for my future. I need to start planning for her future. I need to start making sure that I'm not screwing up anymore, because I can lose this little one if I screw up big again. And I had a few times in my life where I messed up and got myself into some trouble. And then, like I said, circling back was like, all right, I can't do that anymore. I can't afford to get into trouble anymore.
Yeah.
So it was really buckling down, taking myself more serious than anything. Like I said, I would just kind of blissfully go through this world, didn't take myself serious, didn't really take anybody else serious, And yeah, after she was born, it was definitely a big eye opener for me. It was like, all right, time to buckle down, man. You got to start straightening yourself out here, and yeah. So ever since then, it's been just a hyper focus of mine. It was like, all right, I'm gonna screw up, but I'll never screw up the way that I used to, and I need to figure out, if I do mess up again, figure out why, because it wasn't intentional now.
Yeah.
So figure out what happened and make sure that, like I said, I course correct so that way it doesn't happen again.
So as I'm having this amazing conversation with you, and you've grown so much as a husband, as a father, just a man in general. But as they say, that cliche, behind every great man is a great woman, right? So I wanted to ask you, how has your wife played? What role has she played in your life to help you be the father, the husband, the man that you have become? Because I know she had to deal with some of the nonsense as well, of course.
Yeah, yeah, big time. So as we were saying before we started recording, I let you know that I have a stepson. So her already being a parent when we met definitely helped me get ready for the role. And my wife is a big she's my balance. When I'm tilting too far one direction, she's good at pulling me back in the other direction and keeping me straight. So yeah, we're a good team. We have great communication, and that's where a lot of that stemmed from. Was I didn't have good communication before her. I would have liked to have said that I did, but I really didn't. It was very one-sided for me. It was a one-way road. I needed to let you know how I felt, and that would be just this flood of this is where I'm coming from type of thing, without being ready to receive the other side of it. And kind of the same thing for her. It was a lot of where she was coming from, and not really ready to receive the other side of it. So when we got together, something just kind of clicked, I guess, in between the both of us individually, and we started accepting the other side of things, and it took a little bit to learn how to listen, and to learn how to really apply what the other person's saying. They may not be 100% right, but from where they're coming from, they are. And so I feel that I'm right. Well, she feels that she's right too. And one of my favorite saying is, as thin as it is, even a piece of paper has two sides to it. And so trying to figure out, where I'm coming, or letting her know where I'm coming from, and then hearing where she's coming from, and then, like I said, assessing the middle of that. All right, well, now that we have a better understanding of each other, how do we go forward from there? So yeah, she was definitely a big help, both directly and indirectly, keeping me in line, and then giving me the opportunity to help keep her in line too. And I don't mean that sounds kind of bad to say it like that, but just to help balance each other out like that. She's been a great partner in that aspect.
Now I'm gonna ask this question because it's something that I'm sure other people have struggled with. I struggled with at one point. So, like you said, when you met your now wife, but at the time she already had her son, which is also your son, of course. But how one, were you ready for that, right? At whatever age you was, and then two, how did you go about it? Was it one of those things? I know he was young when you first met him, but was it one of those things where it was awkward? Like, hey, as he got a little bit older, hey, can I tell him, don't do this, or I gotta talk to the mom? Like, how, because a lot of times I've talked to many fathers, it's a struggle. It's like it's like that weird dance they don't know at times, So,
Right.
how was that for you?
It was a little bit challenging. She was very good. Like, I mean, her watching her mother was definitely something that drew me to her. So, I got a good sense of how this kid works. What he responds to, what it is that he kind of needs to hear in order to actually hear you, and hear your voice type of thing. And she was very good at kind of jumping in. Like she would allow me to say what it is I needed to say if he was getting out of line or whatever. But then if he wasn't listening, she was very good at then coming in and saying, "Hey, Sean's talking. You gotta listen to what he's saying here." So she definitely helped me with that. It was something that I was definitely ready for because I knew, when her and I first met, I knew that she had a kid. So I knew the situation at hand. But as far as how to deal with him, she was a big help with that. But even with that being said, still trying to, like you said, walk that very fine line of how how much do I insert myself into this kid's life? Where is that line of that I want to make sure that I don't cross because at that point it's like I'm not your father. His dad is very involved in his life. So it was hard to try to make sure that I wasn't trying to replace daddy for him, but let him know that I'm still a father figure. And like I said, patience was the big thing for me, and learning how to go about that. But again, man, kudos to my wife. She was a big help with that, and definitely made it a lot easier for me than it probably could have been for anybody else.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Yeah, because like you said, it can get a little dicey at times, with everything. So
For
that's why
sure.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I was just curious about how you can kind of go about it because too, right? You don't want it to be where, okay, you're I don't know, you're doing certain things with your daughter, but then your stepson feels left out, right? And it's like where it's like, okay, yeah, I know I'm not your biological father, but I am a
Hmm.
father figure here. And,
Right.
I just think about that because I remember growing up, those are things I used to feel, right? Where it's like, dang, like, okay, I understand you're my step parent, but like, why is it that this one, like, I thought we're all one family, right? And so that's
Right.
where it can get tricky, you know what I mean? And so, especially with boys will test you as well.
Boys are tough, man. They
For
really
sure.
are. He was a tricky one for sure. He was such a good kid, though. He's always been sweet, but yeah, boys can be tough, man. And he's definitely tested the strength of our relationship too, and the strength of my patience too. He's
Yeah.
definitely tried it over the years, but uh, he's 4 years older than my daughter. And so him and I were able to really get a good bond, before she
Mhm.
came into the picture.
That's dope.
And with her being, such a baby at the time, he enjoyed being a part of the attention that she was getting. And but it wasn't, yeah, when she started getting a little older, he definitely was like, hey, me too, like don't
Yes.
forget about me, type of thing. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's right. No, listen, man, just because I'm showing her this attention doesn't mean I don't still have some for you too. Our
Mm,
relationship is very different.
yeah.
So yeah, we've definitely had our few times of it being a challenge, but he's always kind of been accepting of the attention that was going to her, knowing that he has a very different type of attention that he receives from me. Her being a girl probably helps with that aspect because he knows that I'm gonna treat her a little different because she's a girl.
Yeah.
I can imagine if it were another boy, what that would have been like. But luckily for our situation, it was a girl. So he understands that that she was my little sweetie, but
Yeah.
he's my main man. He's my main
Yeah.
guy, and so I always let him know that he was my number one dude.
That's dope. I love it, man. I love it. So, like, with your, I look at it like with yourself reflecting and trying to make sure you have that balance, right? I'm sure it's impacted your family in a positive way, it sounds like. But how do you keep learning and growing when life feels like at times life can feel like it's a routine or life can just
Mm.
feel really heavy at times, right? Because of
Mm.
just so many different things going on. Like, how do you keep, that fire in a sense to want to learn, to want to grow? Not saying you're not going to, but when there's so much going on, for that moment, it's like, man, forget this. So how do you kind of, I guess, keep yourself in check to not feel like, hey, life is just continue to do the same thing over and over again?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, man. Because yeah, life, we're creatures of habit, And, once we start going about something one way, that's kind of how we'll continue to go about it, right? So for me, I think I'm hyper aware that my kids are always watching. They're observing me, and it's kind of trial and error because there was a time period, and I touched base on it on the episode we did before that I was working a job that wasn't right for me, and I was bringing the stress of that job home with me, and then in turn taking it out on my family. Something would come up, and then I would snap and explode, and then I was seeing the negative effect that it was having on them. So it was like, all right, I feel I have a right to be upset. I feel that there's reasons, and everything was valid from where I was coming from, but that doesn't change the fact that it's having a negative effect on those around me. I don't want to be the reason why the kids don't want to talk to daddy when he gets home from work, or to put that negative pin in their head that work is bad, work is hard, work is a negative. So when the time comes that they grow up and they start looking for jobs, they're going to be weary of it, knowing that it's a stressful thing, and this is how we respond when we get stressed. I don't want them to grow up thinking or remembering how bad I handled things, and learn bad habits on how they respond to those things. So yeah, for me, it was just really starting to look internally, look inward, and all right, what are kind of asking myself guiding questions like, all right, what are my values? What are my goals? What are the things that bring me joy? What are the things that stress me out? What are the things that I'm grateful for? And start putting more weight on addressing those things. Instead of, like I said, I used to just go from one moment to the next, not really thinking about this type of stuff. And so seeing the effect that I was having on my family definitely just triggered that in me to, all right, let me make sure that if I'm stressed out, like I said, address why I'm stressed out, figure out what that is, and then course correct on what I can do different, what I can at least at the very least address it with them. Like, yeah, I'm upset, and here's why, and not let them wonder if it has anything to do with them. That was something that, when I would see when I was a kid, I would see my dad get upset about something, and I'm thinking like, oh man, I did something wrong, or insert myself into it. It must have something to do with me. My parents must be fighting because of me or something. So really just breaking it down on how I'm feeling about something, why I'm feeling that way, and going about how fixing or addressing how I'm going about it, and being on top of my game, just making sure that like I said, that I'm just trying to do my best, and at the very least they'll see that and
Yeah.
understand that.
So how? Because I should share this when, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out his latest episode, I'll make sure I put his information on there as well. But I actually spoke about this as well, or when I turned the job down. But in your situation, you was at a job where I'm assuming you're not there anymore, but that job
Nope.
wasn't the best job for you just because it was a lot of stress. You was taking it home, right? All these different things. And so, how was you able to walk away from it? Because at the end of the day, yes, it was breaking, stress and was impacting your family in a negative way, right? And it's one of those things, you did choose your family over that job, which is a beautiful thing. But I guess to play advocate, right, it's like, okay, as a man, as a father, I'm a provider. And it doesn't matter if the job is stressful, right? Like it's still it's paying the bills. So right now this is just what I have
Right.
to do. Matter of fact, we'll circle back around. Matter of fact, maybe like what your father had to do at times, right? Like I'm providing and I'm just going to cope with this alcohol, right? Like you
Hmm.
could have done the same thing because even though you wasn't, or like you didn't know it until later on, but still, hey, my dad was able to do it. It worked for him, right? So you could have had that full circle of, hey, you know what? I understand you guys don't like how I am, but this is providing for my family. This is what we need at the moment, and have that mindset because many of us as men, many of us as fathers have that mindset, right? Like, Hey, you know what? This sucks, but we're gonna tough it out. Hey, you're okay. My wife is pissed off. It doesn't matter. Hey, you happy we have this house, right? You happy we have food, right? This is right. So just to have that dynamic. So I say all that to ask you, how was that?
Yeah, no, you're right, man. I definitely come from, that old school, upbringing of, it doesn't matter if it sucks, you got to do what you got to do, especially as the man of the house. My dad, yeah, for sure worked that job that, wasn't feeding his soul, but he had to do what he had to do. And the way that he coped with that was the alcohol, like you said. So, um, I was definitely starting to head down that path, and like I said, I didn't choose to have a vice that was a negative that really that I chose that would be my balancing act, right? So yeah, when I saw I was having that negative effect, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Neil because he's a close friend of mine. He had worked that same job, found a new one, and knew my situation. And so as soon as a position opened up at that job, he was like, "Hey man, I got an out for you right here. I got a light at the end of the tunnel. Why don't you come and join us and get you out of that stressful situation?" And so yeah, I got out of there quick as soon as I could, and it made a huge help for me to, I mean, one, coming away from it, it was like, all right, I now know. I mean, every job is going to be stressful to some degree, right? But now that I have a fresh start, I need to make sure, like I was saying, I know my triggers and what sets me off and what's stressing me out, and I need to handle it better going forward. So definitely got into a new position, a new job, but had a new mindset to go along with it too. And so being able to remove myself from that situation, I had gained experience that I turned into knowledge, and I applied that going forward. And it was definitely one of the best things that ever happened to me. And we ended up moving to, so getting out of my workplace, getting out of the home life that we had over there. It was just kind of this big overall change within a year that I used that momentum to really change the trajectory of how things were going in my life. And new house, new job, new issues. Still have some things that come up, like you said, but excuse me. But just knew had a better understanding of how to handle it and deal with myself. Something's always going to come up, no matter what it is, no matter what job, no matter what house, no matter what relationship or whatever the case is, there's always going to be something that comes up. But if you get an opportunity to get that fresh start, you, like I said, use that momentum going forward to really change things. This is how I used to handle it, but I'm not going to do that anymore because that, again, I felt valid in being upset, but it didn't help. So I don't want to be the cause on why things are going the same way that they used to or are getting even worse because of the way that I'm handling it. So
Yeah.
again, man, just trying to do better, every day in any way I can and use the experiences that I get in whatever aspect of life and turn it into knowledge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, I have actually before I have two more questions, but before I get to those last two, I want to say as well, which you probably already know, but I just want to say it anyways, is one, for those that's listening or watching as well, this may, hit for one of you guys, but one, how you was feeling, whatever was going on. Obviously, your feelings are valid, right? Like a lot of times I think as men, a lot of times we feel like our feelings aren't valid. It's just the way we go about it, right? The way we express
Right.
it, right? We could be upset, but if we're punching holes in walls and things like, right, that's not really, that's not being
Right.
productive. That's not really, now all of a sudden, you're mad, but now they're upset. Not only are you yelling and maybe you're acting crazy to them, but now they're like, why you put a hole in the wall, right? Like, so it's just,
Right.
like that. But I just want to at least say that, as well as like, man, for you or for whoever's listening, like, as man, our feelings are valid. It's just a way to go about it. Don't operate in the place of, what, it doesn't matter how I feel, like as long as my lady's okay or my kids are okay. Like, no, your feelings matter too. Right? Your feelings matter too.
100%.
And if you're not in the right place, guess what? Your family's going to notice that. Your family's going to feel that, right? So,
Right.
but yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No, that's huge, man. That's huge. You know, you can't control how you feel about something. That's a natural reaction to the situation at hand. But sometimes, so it's not the feelings that are wrong, but sometimes it's that little mental switch that we got to make, that minor adjustment mentally to then one, assess your feelings and you know, ask yourself why you're feeling that way. But yeah, what can I do? How do I go about this the right way? You know, punching the hole in the wall to let somebody know I'm upset, like that doesn't make the situation better. Like you said, now you got to fix the wall too. So now you're just adding work to yourself, right? Now you're going to be upset about that. But finding that way to express those feelings that you have, man, that's one of the big ones for me. And that you know, bringing it back to communication aspect of it. You got to be able to communicate how you're feeling, and that's not easy at first, but like a muscle, man, the more you do it, the stronger it gets, the easier it gets. But that was hard for me too, was learning how to open up and express myself without it being this big angry explosion,
Mm,
because that's how I used to deliver it.
yeah.
Again, trial and error, that wasn't helping me. It wasn't making anything better. And I used to hang my hat on that. Like, you know, I never started any argument, but when I got mad, I always made it worse.
Mm,
So, all right, don't get mad. You know, figure out a better way to explain yourself, to communicate, to open up. And if it's not received well, if it's not reciprocated, that's not on me, that's on them. And now that's the work that they have to do. But yeah, man, so you're right, man. Our feelings are valid, but it's how we express those feelings that can kind of be wrong sometimes.
no, absolutely, man. And you might have already answered my second to last question, but it was just basically if you could go back and give your younger, your younger self advice before the marriage, before being a father, what would you say? Would it be communication or would it be something else?
I think it would be, you know, one, calm down. I was an angry kid. You know, again, I had a lot of feelings but didn't know how to express them.
Mm,
Calm down, man. The situation that you're in is not the end of the world.
mm,
Yeah, probably communication. I probably would have told myself that I need to start talking to somebody. You
mm,
know, that's a big stigma with men, is that going to seek professional help is a sign of weakness. You know, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be professional help, you know, just talking to anybody, talking to a homie, talking to a parent, talking to a sibling, whatever the case is, expressing yourself the right way. Because again, feelings are valid no matter what, but sometimes it's that mindset that needs to be adjusted a little bit. So I would definitely go back and tell myself, you know, calm down, it's all good, but you need to talk about what you're feeling, man, because you're never going to move past it. You're never going to grow from it if you just internalize it and just have it explode in this big way that nobody's going to want to deal with. So yeah, calm down, little man. It's going to be all right.
So do you think that's from when you grew up and you kind of just kept things in and it just built over time? Or do you think there's a more reason why when, your younger version of you, right, was just really ready to pop off at any moment type of situation?
Yeah, yeah. I, yeah, again, I didn't like being wrong. I didn't like feeling uncomfortable. So, depending on the situation, I had to make sure that other people didn't want to deal with it either. So I would have that big explosion. So then somebody would be like, "All right, never mind." This
Yeah.
kid's going off. Um, I
Mm,
I had a big. I would say for me, it was almost like I guess an identity crisis.
mm,
I didn't really know who I was. I was born in Massachusetts, and I moved to California when I was 8. And I came from, little Whitesville in Massachusetts. There was, no diversity at all. And then I moved to a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood in California, and it was culture shock for me.
mm.
So I felt like I needed to change who I was in order to fit in with everybody else around me. And if that didn't work, I would get frustrated, I would get angry, and then, yeah, I would have these big explosions. So for me, it was, and again, that bringing that back to the maturity aspect, I guess. Um, so yeah, I think internalizing, the struggles that I was having, moving from where I came from to where I went to, the struggles that I was having with, yeah, trying to fit in and be accepted. I didn't talk about that type of stuff. I just internalized it. So I think a lot of it was, yeah, just keeping it all in, and I had to be tough.
Yeah.
None of these other kids are struggling, with their identity, and they're not telling me the hard times that they're having, dealing with the things that they're dealing. So why would I open up and talk about that type of stuff too?
Mm,
So yeah, just expressing how I was feeling,
yeah.
and possibly learning from somebody or being told better ways to go about it.
Mm, yeah. No, that makes sense, man. That makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, especially I'm just thinking of the dynamic too. That's gonna be definitely a culture shock for sure. But
Right.
so my last question to you is just when when you think about, the kind of father and husband you're still becoming, right? What
Mm.
does that version of you look like?
I was just Kyle and I talked about this not too long ago, and the main thing for me is that just because I'm getting older doesn't mean that I have to put my hopes and dreams on hold,
Mm,
or stop them altogether because I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I have to provide in that aspect. I want to show my kids that no matter what's going on in life, you can always go after your dreams. You can always find new dreams, that you want to accomplish or go after, or whatever it is. And we were saying, how great it would be for them to see us accomplish our hopes and dreams in life, and to show them firsthand that you can do whatever you set your mind to. So definitely for me, I want to show them that it's never too late to try. It's never too late to go after what it is that you want in life, and to yeah, like I said, show them firsthand that you can do it too. Anybody could do it.
that's dope. I love it, man. So as we getting ready to close out, well, one, tell the people where they can find you, where they can check out, all your stuff, your podcast, YouTube, whatever, Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at the release valve on Instagram's the main form of social media that I have. I should branch out and get on X or TikTok or Facebook and stuff like that. But Instagram's the main one, at the release valve, and all my episodes are posted on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Dope, dope, man. I love it. And like always, guys, I always like to give the flowers. So right, so I want to give you your flowers, Sean. Just one is just listen to your story, man. One, again, I appreciate you hopping on, but also, that kid that was couldn't express himself, couldn't communicate, the kid that was angry all the time. Uh, I'm so thankful that you're doing the work because your son doesn't have to deal with that, right?
Mm.
You'll be able to help him and teach him, and then he's able to see, oh, I see how he's treating my mom, right? Obviously, he does have his biological father, which I'm sure he's doing an amazing job, but he gets to see, oh, this is how someone is treating my mom. I want to make
Mm.
sure I do the same when it's my time to start my family, right? And so you're doing the work, man, where he's not seeing, that angry boy anymore, right? He's not seeing, oh, just
Right.
going off anymore, and even if he did for a little bit, he's now seeing, dang, like, okay, I see, like, he put the work in, right? Like,
Mm.
he's not reacting like that no more. Okay, yeah, I be trying to test him at times, and he still is like trying to hear what I have to say, right? And so that goes a long way, even though at times it feels like it's not. Trust me, my oldest one, at times it feels like it's not sinking in, but it is. It is.
Right.
They have to go through their own journey. They have to go through their own process with certain things.
Right.
Right? But as long as you continue to do the work and be the example, and then obviously with your wife, man, salute to her for just for really just being that extra push you need, and being that
Mm.
support system. And then your daughter, man, like, I remember when I was on an episode with you, you talked about how she said she wants to marry a man like you, and I think that's just, again, I think that's amazing, and that speaks a lot of the work you put in, right? Because she doesn't know that angry boy, right? She doesn't know who
Right.
that is. She doesn't know the
Right.
person that can't communicate, that doesn't want to be wrong on anything, right? She just knows, oh, this is my dad who loves me and always wants the best for me. And you're showing her, right? Because as fathers, we cannot teach our daughters how to be women, but we can teach our daughters how they should be treated by men. And that's what you're doing, right? And so that's just a amazing thing, man. And so, I just want to salute you, man, and the work you're doing,
Man.
and don't stop. Continue doing what you're doing, man. At times it's going to be hard. At times you're going to feel overwhelmed. But the amazing thing is you have a support system. Many of us as men, I do, but I know there's men out there that don't feel like they have that support system, right? I joke all the time, like people that are single, I'm like, man, it's rough out there for y'all. I know it, right? So,
Legit.
you have someone that has your back, and you have your kids. That's that extra motivation. Not that you need it more, but that's just that extra push that you need at times, right? And so, again,
Right.
bro, I just want to salute you, man, and thank you again for just giving me some of your time today.
No, man, I appreciate you having me on here, man, and having this platform, creating this safe space for guys like us to come on here and open up and like I said, be vulnerable. More people need that, and for you to give that to people, man, that's huge. So I salute you too for the work that you're doing, and the platform that you've created for guys to come on and yeah, open up about what we have going on, man. That's huge. So thank you for this opportunity.
Appreciate it. And like always, guys, right? Like always, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. I'll see you guys on the next one.